So I'm currently adjusting to life after Cheltenham. And as you all know, Cheltenham is one of the big weeks of the year for me. So in this video, I will tell you how I did on this particular weekend, highlight a couple of things for you that I found interesting. But I also wanted to use this video as well to make an offer to people who are still sceptical about what I do. I've been doing it for a very long period of time. And as you know, Cheltenham is one of the key focus moments of the year for me. So if you're a skeptic and you're not sure about whether this is real or not, then I have an offer for you in this video as well. I've been successfully betting and trading for over 2 decades. If you want more videos like this and you want me to describe more of what I do, then give us a like. If you want to talk to like-minded people, visit the Betangel forum where you can do exactly that, but also visit our website where you can download a free trial of Betangel. So if you watch my videos regularly, you should know that Cheltenham is a big focus for me. And I put a lot of energy and effort into getting things right around Cheltenham. And also, especially given in mind what I said earlier in the year, and one of the videos that I did about how I was going to change what I do this year, I wanted to focus on some of the big meetings and perhaps drop some of the smaller stuff out there so that I can improve my quality of life. So getting a good performance at Cheltenham was going to be important to me. And thankfully, that is exactly what happened. I managed to win on 27 out of 28 races at Cheltenham, netting a decent total overall. And what I've done is I've stitched together page 1 and page 2 of my Betfair P&L, and it will now liberally scroll in front of this particular screen while I am talking. The interesting thing as well is that Cheltenham is so favourable in terms of its general characteristics that I also managed to win on 27 out of 28 races on BetStack. So yeah, the great thing about Cheltenham, and the thing I've tried to highlight in the past, is that the level of turnover that you see is perhaps sort of 10 times what you'd typically expect. So you're even higher on some races on day-to-day meetings, and it brings like the perfect balance of volume and liquidity. And also you can trade it for much longer. And people often wonder, how can you pull out these sort of results? But think about it for a second. When you're actively trading, what you're doing is you're going into the market, you're putting a stake in the market, then you're taking that stake out of the market, and then you're hedging that position. But typically what you can do at Cheltenham is you can go into the market, you can go out, you can go in, you can go out. You get a good half an hour to be able to trade these particular markets. So you get much, much longer than you do on a smaller race meeting. And also the liquidity is like 10 times higher than you would typically get. So you get longer, you get more liquidity. So the results you see at Cheltenham should be higher. And that is just a function of the way that the market works. When those things aren't in place, or the liquidity and the amount of time you've got on the market is much smaller, you should be getting smaller trading results. So the only clever thing that I do at Cheltenham is I will use slightly bigger stakes because there's more money within the market. But fundamentally, what you see in those results is basically a function of the amount of time that I have on the market and the amount of money that's available. And the reason the amount of money available is important is because I need to get out of a trade. When there's a lot of money in the market, it means I can take more risk, because if things go wrong, I can exit the market really quickly. If you overstake on smaller markets, then you'll inevitably end up with a loss. So yeah, those are the things that define those key characteristics in terms of the way that Cheltenham trades. And you may think that I'm a bit gutted to not get all 28, but there's a balancing act to be had here, because if I win on all 28, then I always feel like I've left something on the table. I haven't traded as well as I could. I haven't taken enough risk. Likewise, you don't want to lose on all 28. So there's a balance to be had there. So it's always interesting to be able to look at these numbers and sort of say, well, I think I probably did about right on this particular year, because I did have one loss. So a few losses within that particular mix shows that I'm getting that balance right between pushing things as hard as I can, but not overdoing it. So yeah, while I am a little bit gutted not to be able to get all 28 races, nonetheless, 27 out of 28 is fine. And it also shows that probably I was at about the right level throughout this particular meeting. And in fact, if you look at the very last day that I had at Cheltenham. You can see I lost on the first race, but I absolutely blitzed all of the races from there. So I think there was getting that monkey off my back of trying to go for all 28 probably helped me losing on that first race. If I hadn't have lost on that first race on the last day, I may not have earned as much. And the curious thing was on that same day on BetDeck, I did win on all of those races. So that loss was a function of what happened on Betfair in that particular market, not necessarily something that I did particularly wrong. It was just not meant to be. So while it would have been nice to get all 28, I got 27 out of 28, and I'm more than happy with that overall result. And one thing I should point out here as well is the results that you're seeing here are my manually traded P&Ls. These are not any of the automation that I've been running. These are just purely manually traded P&Ls. So the actual result that I did get was actually a little bit higher in the overall scheme of things. So yeah, Cheltenham went pretty well. So something interesting happened in the early part of the week. I posted up my P&L on the Tuesday, and I got a message from a betangel user, Ed. Thank you very much for the dialogue that we had last week. And he sort of said, impressive results. And we had a little discussion around some individual races and stuff. And I said to him, oh yeah, but I always feel, especially around Cheltenham, that I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself by doing the videos, posting the P&Ls and stuff like that, because all of a sudden, I feel this burden of responsibility to do really well. And I said to him, I'm sure if I didn't post them at all, I would probably do better because I'd have none of that pressure. And this is something that everybody has a different level of tolerance to risk and so on. And it's like if I took on money to trade for other people, I would trade it very differently from the way that I trade my own money. And that is why I've never done it and have no intention of doing it. And as I've described in other videos, there's no reason why you would do that. But yeah, as I sort of went through the first couple of days, you begin to think, oh, I could get 20 out of 28 here. But as I've just mentioned, you're trying to get that balance right. And I said to him, I'm not sure if I should post up these P&Ls. And he said, no, you should, because it's a bit like, when somebody breaks a time at a marathon, all the times below them improve because people realize what can be achieved. And fundamentally speaking, that is why I did this in the first place, is because there are a lot of skeptics out there. I want to show that I've been doing it, and I've been doing it for so long now as well. I want to show you what is possible. I'm not saying necessarily that you could do exactly the same, but fundamentally speaking, you could. You're using the same tools. You just need to use, and do the same things as me, and you could replicate that. But of course, everybody's different. So you should do it for your own reason and within your own constraints and your own targets, and not feel under pressure to do something crazy, basically. I think that's an important thing to say. But you've got to realize that these P&Ls are the result of 20 years worth of experience. If I played golf for 20 years, I'd probably be a scratch golfer. And if I played tennis every day for 20 years, I'd be a really good tennis player within my age category. But fundamentally speaking, what you're looking at there is the product of a lot of practice. So, don't be inspired by it, but don't be unrealistic about what you want to achieve. Everybody has to start at the same level and gradually work their way up. If you start right today, after watching this video, it'll take you 20 years to get to the stage where I am. Perhaps, maybe you'd be better than me. I don't know. But yeah, that's why I put those things up. But necessarily, it always draws in skeptics, even after all this time. I think the first time that I got all 28 at Cheltenham, for much smaller amounts back then, because I was still in the early days of my horse racing trading, was back in 2006. I'm pretty sure it was 2006 when that happened. I may stand corrected on that. But, I've done it repeatedly over a long period of time, all quite impressive stuff, and sometimes getting all 28 out of 28, but you're still getting a load of skepticism. And this also echoes back to what happened on Tuesday, because I posted up my P&L, and the timestamp at the top of the P&L on Tuesday basically showed earlier in the afternoon, but all of the results were there until 5:30. So somebody queried that with me. And the fact is that there was no reason to be skeptical on this, because if you go in and you look at your Betfair P&L, it timestamps it from the moment at which you first looked at it. If you then go in on your P&L and you do the last 3 hours, the last 6, just for today or whatever, it only actually changes the boxes, the from and to boxes underneath that date. And when you click on the Get P&L, it brings up the P&L for that particular date. It never changes the timestamp at the top. But of course, some people saw this as an opportunity to throw a bit of skepticism into the mix. They were just trying to throw a bit of doubt into the mix. But the fact is, it was a perfectly legitimate, normal P&L. The only time that timestamp updates is if you press Control R or Command R on a Mac, and then it will refresh the timestamp at the top. But the P&L was completely legitimate. There was absolutely nothing wrong with it. Which brings me on to the final point that I want to make on this video. So while I was trading at Cheltenham one day this week, my wife was at a funeral, and that is because she works for a charity that looks after and helps families with terminally ill children. And the link to racing is that at Ascot Racecourse once a year they do Christmas in July, which is where they hold Christmas for children that may not get to see another one. And in fact, one of the races at the July meeting, it actually has the title of this charity as well. And you're thinking, why are you mentioning this to me, Peter? I faced a lot of skepticism over the years. And even during last week, when I put 150% effort into trading Cheltenham, there was some of it still out there. And what I want to say to anybody that doesn't believe any of the figures that I've included in this video or what I achieved last week at Cheltenham is, why don't you find out? Because if you donate £10,000 to this charity, you mention my name, that will obviously get back to me, then I will actually go off and get all of these results verified for you. I don't have a problem doing that. It's just a question of downloading my bet history, presenting that to a notary probably, and for them to examine the records, ask my account manager at Betfair whether it was true or not, and getting an official response from them. Very easy to do. So if you really don't think that it was possible or any part of it was made up, then I suggest you do that. Because I think that's only fair. You've got the opportunity, you've got nothing to lose, because if you're absolutely convinced about it, then the worst that will happen is you end up giving some money to charity, and the best thing that could happen for you is that I'll have to admit that it was all made up. So I don't want to end the video on a negative, but I just wanted to sort of say that when you look at the stuff that I post, it's very real. I know that the industry is awash with people who pretend to do stuff in order to make money by positioning themselves as an expert, but my intent is very genuine. And as I've often said many times in other videos, positive minds find opportunities, negative minds find problems. So all you need to do, and an important step that you need to make when you're trading, is to decide which side of that you choose to end up on.